So I wanted to do a themed video over a couple of things that has stood out to me in the TI community as I've begun advocating more on our behalf as targeted individuals. And the theme of this video is going to be the 3 common misperceptions that I've picked up on regarding TIs and gang stalking. So the first misperception revolves around lifestyle. And I actually saw a social media post this morning, once again, revolving around one TI who is trying to disprove another well-known TI. I'm not going to give any names, but this person is well known in the TI community, trying to, I don't know why that did that. Stop listening to me, Alexa. But trying to help us TIs as a whole. And this other person believes that this TI is actually a phony, a media, he called it a media plant or something, trying to spread misinformation in the TI community. And the whole basis, which I found amusing, of his argument is that this person has or had a prestigious job. They have a college education. You know, despite being a TI, they're still making money. And in this TI's eyes, he thinks that real TIs do not have good jobs or cannot keep jobs. In his experience, the average TI finds it very difficult to keep and hold a good job. Now, let me say, to some extent, this is true. As a targeted individual, it is very difficult to find work that can sustain you and your families. But on the other hand, this is not an indication. If you have a good job, like say if you're working in the medical field or something, let me use myself as an example. I'm a home health aide. Okay, so this person, if they knew about me, they would probably say I'm a phony because I'm a home health aide, and I'm making pretty good money doing that. So I must be a fake TI because I'm making money and I have a college education, 2 degrees, well, 3 counting my high school diploma. So they would probably say that I'm a fake TI spreading lies and misinformation in the TI community as well, if they knew my background. But this is why I say you have to be careful how you judge people, because you don't know the struggles that that person went to get where they are today. For example, with my story, before I started working in such a great job where everything works out for me most of the time, I was working in retail, Sunshine Thrift Store, and it was the worst experience of my life. And people will probably say, okay, how were you able to keep that job for so long? Because I was at Sunshine Thrift Store in 2019. I started work there, and I lost the job last year, 2022. So how was I able to keep that job for so long, being a targeted individual? Well, it worked out good for the program, and they loved that I was working there for the mere fact that they were able to induct everybody into my targeting campaign. My supervisors, my coworkers, even the customers. I would be targeted by customers constantly as I was moved around the store to do different jobs. So it wasn't a walk in the sunshine and flowers for me out at Sunshine Thrift Store. And to be completely honest, there were times I probably should have been fired for firing back at the gang stalkers disguised as customers. I should have been fired, but I know the program has some influence in getting my supervisors to hold me on that job longer. Why? Because it was the main place I was being targeted and tormented the most. Nobody could really harass me at my house, except with the directed energy weapons. But as far as actual people, when I was at home, the only time they could have contact with me was when I would go out back to smoke a cigarette or something, and then they would send the backyard neighbors out. But other than home, work was the only place I went because, I didn't have, and I still don't have, a social life. But my point is, I struggled for years on that job, being tormented. But I was allowed to keep that job for so long because the program loved that I was so tormented and miserable out there. So by the time I got this job, I had been through sheer hell out there, traumatized. And it's a blessing that I have this job. But people that don't know the full story, they will probably look at me and say, oh, you're working as a home health aide. You know, you've got it good. You've got it too good. So you must be one of them, or you must be working with them. And that's not the truth. Not the truth at all. It has nothing to do with whether you have a job or not. Everybody's targeting experience is different. Some people are allowed to do other things other people might not can do. For example, somebody wrote on this TI's post, you know, trying to bring awareness that, hey, you know, there are some TIs out there that have gotten married, whereas other TIs, they can't get married because the program ensures that nobody wants to be with them. If you do get married, more than likely, the person you marry is going to become another targeted individual, or is already a targeted individual, or, you know, they're going to get inducted in. So, you know, you get more intimate targeting from the person you're so in love with. So that's what this first theme is about. It doesn't matter what your lifestyle is. It doesn't matter if you're homeless. It doesn't matter if you're living in the most luxurious house in the world. It doesn't matter if you're working at a fast food joint or if you're in the medical field. You know, it doesn't matter about that, because either way it goes, you're still going to be targeted to some extent. So people that think that TIs that actually think that people that have good jobs and they're living in good environments in a house of their own or something, they think those people are fake. To me, that is very ignorant. Very ignorant. You cannot base your personal experience for everyone. Yes, there are TIs that cannot hold the job because the program makes it entirely difficult for them. But then there are other people that can hold the job, but that doesn't mean they have it all easy. No, you just get targeted in more areas. I also want to point out, even though I am working in home health care with one family member and one relative, guess what? I'm still being targeted now more than I was when I was working at Sunshine Thrift Store. And let me tell you, the directed energy attacks increased, and that's when I got introduced to the V2K last September. You know, I think the program, I think they figured in their minds, because at that time I was literally only going back and forth from one house to the other. I wasn't going out in public unless it was to get some cigarettes, so they wasn't really getting an opportunity to get at me unless they used my neighbors when I would go out back. But that wasn't always successful either, because I would wear headphones listening to music when I would go out back, so I wouldn't have to deal with all that. So I do believe they implemented the V2K in September of last year due to the fact, you know, they realized they had to throw something else in there to make me suffer, because at that point I wasn't really suffering. You know, I was so glad I had gotten a new job, not only a new job, but a better job, a much better job, making much more money. And I know in their eyes, I was boasting about it. And to an extent, I was boasting about it, because in my eyes, they spent all those years dogging me out, having me dogged out at Sunshine Thrift Store, making my life a living hell, to the point that, you know, I would dread going into work every day because I already knew I was going to be stalked and harassed. They made my life a living hell out there. So when I got this new job where I could just go from one house to the other, you know, and, you know, making even more money than before, I was head over heels. I was like, finally, God has ruled on my side. And they were pissed when it first happened. Like, when I first got fired from Sunshine Thrift Store, like, people would pass by me in public when I would go get cigarettes or go to Publix or something, and you know, they were all smirking. Like, hey, that's what you get. We see you didn't keep that job long. Like, I do believe their ultimate goal was to get me fired from that job. And I could have been fired even earlier, but I think to them it was all part of the game. They wanted me to do something absolutely obvious to get fired. They didn't want to just make it easy where they just lay me off just like that. They wanted me to snap. And in the end, that is kind of what I did. I didn't put my hands on nobody, but I did snap off on a customer, well, a gang stalker disguised as a customer, and she knows she set me up. I do take responsibility responsibility to the fact that I shouldn't have reacted the way I did. But ultimately, I do not regret my actions. And they were mad as hell when I guess they thought it was going to take me even longer to find another job after Sunshine. I honestly thought it was going to take even longer because they had taken years to get hired, period. You know, that's another thing people don't know about your story. Before I started work in 2019 at Sunshine Thrift Store, I had been out of work for almost 2 years. Nobody would hire me. So I thought, you know, I was in heaven when I got hired at the thrift store, and then it turned into complete hell. Then when I got this job as a home health aide, you know, I had it going great. You know, I was so happy, and that's what they didn't like. And I have a feeling that is why they introduced me to V2K that September. You know, they had to keep the torment going. They had to keep it going. Some kind of extreme way, they had to keep it going. But my whole point is, even though I'm working a better job, I'm getting targeted more than I was when I was at Sunshine, which is why people who say if you have a good job and all of that, you know, you're not a real targeted individual, because real targeted individuals, they can't find and keep good jobs. You're wrong. They'll let you get a good job, but you better believe they're gonna harass and torment you 3 times worse than they were doing before. Okay, the second misperception revolves around behavior and personality, which I know sounds weird, but there are actually some TIs who think that other TIs are fake because of the way they act, or the way they react towards certain situations. Some TIs actually think other TIs might be mentally ill or might be just looking for attention or something. Even when it comes to avocation and documentation, some TIs, they have a whole philosophy on how they react to the situations around them with gang stalkers. Some do not believe in paying them any attention or reacting in any way, whereas others believe, you know, you stand up for yourself at all costs anytime you're encountered by these people, anytime, you know, they do something against you. And the weirdest thing is, some people believe the way that you react shows whether you're a real TI or not. Even on social media, I would see posts from people saying that those who talk so much about what they're going through, constantly talking about the abuse done to them, are not real TIs. As one woman said, real TIs, you know, who have been in this for years, you get to the point you don't even talk about it anymore because it just comes a part of your daily life. So people who talk about it incessantly, about who's abusing them, who's doing this to them, who's doing that to them, you know, their whole targeting experience, those people aren't real TIs. And I thought that was just incredibly stupid. All of us have different personalities. Some people don't have to talk about what's going on with them. You know, they have ways that they get it all out without expressing themselves to other people, or expressing themselves on social media on what's going on and how it's making them feel, you know. But then there are other people, like me for instance, who I like to express myself. I like to get my story out there. Doing these videos, it's been a big leap, because I used to just journal it on my phone, and then I stopped doing that after it was obvious I was being hacked, and it was being spread around to the very people I didn't want to see it. But I've gone back to advocating and even sharing my story and my experiences. And some might look at me and be like, so you've been a TI for a little over 5 years now, but it's like you're, you know, like you just got started in it because of the way you react at times. And it has nothing to do with your attitude or reaction. You know, that doesn't make you less of a TI the way you react to certain things. In all honesty, it's a learning experience. You learn from your mistakes of how you react to certain things. You learn from the adversity. You grow from it. That's one mindset to take. And that's the mindset I try to take with this kind of thing. But people who think if you react this way, or if you encourage people to react another way, you're not a real TI, because real TIs, they don't even try. Matter of fact, real TIs don't even try and document what's happening, because they know it's practically impossible, even in documenting it. As far as getting on camera, it's impossible to prove without a doubt. It's, you know, It's amazing to me the amount of criticism there is in the TI community towards other TIs. It amazes me. You will never see gang stalkers criticizing other gang stalkers in this manner. You won't ever hear of them criticizing other gang stalkers whatsoever. Those people are, as I said in another video, 100% united. But we TIs, who should also be 100% united, are often too busy criticizing each other on lifestyle and how you react to a certain situation. You know, it's funny, but it's not funny. It's sad. We need to be more united. Along with that, there are some people, and I've decided to bring this up instead of not talking about it, because nobody ever seems to want to talk about this topic, which is mental illness. As soon as you mention mental illness, most TIs, they go running the other way because they don't want to be associated with that because it's a cliche. People who claim to be targeted individuals are usually seen as mentally ill and paranoid. So if a TI has a mental illness, a diagnosed mental illness, their credibility is usually discounted, even by other TIs. And that is ridiculous. You know, did it ever dawn on people that some TIs might have been diagnosed as having mental illness because of what they're going through? Like maybe that made them the way they are. You know, did anybody ever think of that? I just don't think that TIs that have been diagnosed with mental illness, they shouldn't feel ashamed, and they shouldn't feel like they have to hide it. You know, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It doesn't make you less of a person and less of a targeted individual. You can be a targeted individual and still have a mental illness diagnosis. But that doesn't take away from the fact that you are still a targeted individual. Your name is on the list. So people that have, TIs that have a mental diagnosis and maybe on medicine, you know, don't feel bad about that, and don't feel like you have to hide it. I mean, you don't have to go out of your way to let the world know that you got it either, but I'm saying don't feel ashamed. There are targeted individuals out there who were diagnosed as having mental illness, but they are still targeted individuals. Third and last misperception when it comes to TIs and gang stalking. The assumption is that if you are a targeted individual, it has something to do with your past. There has to be something you've done in your past to make you a targeted individual. I mean, I've seen other TIs, not gang stalkers, not skeptics, but actual TIs question other TIs saying, well, what did you do to where you became a targeted individual? How did your name get put on the list? What did you do in your past? And, you know, first of all, if a person chooses to talk about their past, that's up to them, but really it's no one's business, and it doesn't make a difference. Honestly, you can be open about your past. If you made mistakes in your past, if you have a criminal record, for instance, and you want to open up about that, do so. You're still a targeted individual, and the fact remains, regardless of what you did or you didn't do, you did not deserve to have this happen to you. You know, nobody deserves to be abused, used and abused. Nobody. You know, if somebody committed a crime that needs to be punished, that's what the court system is supposed to be for, I thought. You take that person to court, you know, and they get charged and they get sentenced. So it's like, if your name is on the list, my main theory is you know, you pissed somebody off, and this was their backlash against you. This was their move against you to have your name put on the list. They knew they couldn't take you to court because you didn't do anything treacherous. You just pissed them off, and they wanted to make a point. So your history, your past, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters when you're a targeted individual is that you don't deserve to be on that list because you're not a terrorist. The only people's names that should be on the watch list are actual terrorists, actual people who have been proven to have ties to terrorism. So if you have no ties to terrorism, it doesn't matter what you did in your past or what you didn't do in your past. Your name should not be on that list. You don't deserve it. So that's what I always say even when I get comments from other people, because, you know, most TIs claim that they don't have any kind of criminal background. They never even got a traffic ticket. You know, they never found themselves on the wrong side of the law, so they should not have their name on the list. They're totally innocent. And it kind of irks me, because it's like, it wouldn't matter, you know, if you had a criminal record or not, if you have a traffic ticket or not. Come on. It doesn't matter. You're not a terrorist, so your name does not deserve to be on that list. But I see a lot of TIs try to make, you know, justifications as to why their name shouldn't be on the list. And the only justification, like I just said, you should ever have is the fact you are not an actual terrorist. That is your justification. Not your past. Not your criminal record, if you have one. You know, not your mental illness, if you have a mental illness. None of that matters. Just the fact you're not a terrorist. That's all that matters. So like I said, these are the three misperceptions I wanted to talk on. And I'll probably come up with more later, but these are the three that stuck out to me as I've been advocating more in the TI communities online and just being more active in my advocation.